Hello, everybody. Welcome to the December 2024 edition of Excited Utterance. It looks like we're live. It feels like we're live. This is a singer-songwriter. Wait a minute. I'm falling back on my old spiel. This is a writer round robin that has actually 10 years ago in the greater Chicagoland area. This was a live event. And The short version of it is that at one point our venue closed. I was in the midst of looking for a new venue, and then, oh boy, COVID happened. And then, we're still suffering from that. But coming out on the other end of that, it was like, well, let's just do this as an online show. It actually started to seem even more appealing to me to do it that way, because then I could really reach out and have writers from all over the country or potentially all over the world who could do this, instead of people who just happen to be coming through the Chicago area who wanted to be a part of it. So I'm really pleased tonight to be joined by Meghan Lamb and Nancy Miller Gomez. Meghan and I are both coming from the greater Chicagoland area, and Nancy is one of those, we'll say, international folks that is joining us tonight. So please, welcome both of you. I'm really pleased to have you here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you,
pleased to
Larry.
be here too.
So, of course. So let me give one brief spiel about what a round robin is, at least in my version of it. So as I started to say at the beginning, I associate round robins mostly with singer-songwriters, where they would get together and have an opportunity to play a couple of songs, and it passes to the next person, passes to the next, and then comes back around again. It's more or less the same thing here, except in this context, it's writers. We happen to have three poets tonight. I think probably Meghan and Nancy do other stuff as well. I mean, I'm primarily a poet. They can tell you all about what they do. But as far as the timing for each pass, kind of doesn't matter, but it's going to be 3 times, so you'll get a chance to see each of us in 3 different mini sets, starting with me. Not just because I'm the host, but just because I'm kind of running things here. So I think I will get us going as far as the show itself goes. Meghan, Nancy, do you have anything to say before I send you to the green room for your snacks and your foot rubs?
My gin gimlet.
Oh,
No, all set.
I would say yes.
Right.
So Meghan will follow me. And so we'll see you in just a little bit, Meghan, and then Nancy will be a slightly longer time, but she will come around soon. So both of you, glad to have you here. And Meghan, see you in a bit. Nancy, thank you so much. Very jealous of your beverage. All right. So for me, every month, the biggest thing is always just kind of getting through that opening. The weather's a little weird in Chicago tonight, too, in terms of cold and windy. So hopefully there'll be no technical snafus, but I'm prepared to weather, pun intended, to weather that as well as possible. And Meghan and Nancy are pros, too. So, okay. So for this month's, or I should say this quarter's version of the series, I decided to read from a chapbook of mine that was recently republished by Third Man Books. Came out originally 20 years ago, and Third Man reached out to me and asked if I had anything that was chapbook length that they could use for their literarium series. So there are physical copies of the book, which is I Am Spam. I do not have any of the physical copies yet, because the one place you can get it is in the London Third Man Record Shop. So if you're tuning in from the UK, please go. That's where you can get a copy of it. And the Literarium machine prints the books, or I'm sorry, it doesn't print them actually, but it's stocked with the books. And that is the place you can get this version of I Am Spam. The conceit for this was that 20 years ago, I became fascinated with spam email subject lines. And I started, long story short, initially started writing them down, and then it got to a point where I was just like printing the screen because so many of them were so evocative. So I thought, can I turn this into a long-term project, or not long-term, became long-term, but a full-length project. No, but I realized I could probably get something that was chapbook length out of it, and that's exactly what I did. So I really appreciate Third Man reaching out. I look forward to seeing the actual hard copies of this new edition of it. So I'm going to read from it tonight exclusively, and this first pass is just looks to be a lot of the shorter poems in the book. And the first one is an interview with God. It all began innocently enough. I had an idea and should have stopped right there. Not all ideas should be followed through on. I didn't have the cash to do things right, but went ahead and did them anyway. I was stubborn, I guess, and young. I thought I could change the world. Mother called that naive, but I had a mouth on me and only listened to her after she died. She left notes on what I should do, how to live my life, be a good person, but did I listen? Hell no. I'd rather bark than bite, though. My mouth was always getting me into trouble. I couldn't be expected to make a case for myself under those circumstances. In time, I learned subtlety and temperance. By then, I was much older, my get up and go mostly kaput. I still have ideas all the time, but once I finally get to writing them down, most of the details are fuzzy. I need glasses and a vacation. Who doesn't? So when I initially started this project, the one thing and for any project like this, I try to get as much variety as I can in terms of the poem on the page, and also I found I was leading into a lot of more surreal or bizarre readings of some of these subject lines, but I wanted some of them to be serious if I could. And so this one is the email subject line was, "Emily, is that you?" And this was the result. A child's face exaggerated, freckles, an explosion of red across pale cheeks parked askew in a paperback book. Translucent blue eyes skidding from left to right like bald tires hydroplaning on rain-slick streets. Haystack blonde hair, newly styled, cascades in clipper-snipped layers. Pushing fingers through random strands, she curls a few underneath her nose, sniffing and smiling like a cat deciding to eat what it's caught. A subline I continue to see in spam email: be your own boss. Downsize yourself. Take a few inches off from below the knees. Hobble across the office and prostrate yourself before yourself, weeping uncontrollably. Pull yourself together. Walk to the cooler and splash your face with sparkling spring water. Develop a plan of action and handpick your team comprised of you and you and you. You're in charge of research and development. Distribution, you handle it, and you write the checks. Everyone gets 2 weeks paid vacation, full medical and dental. Your teeth never had it so good, so well cleaned and whitened, you punch yourself in the mouth and call an emergency crisis management meeting. Overtime will not be paid. This is, I ate chocolate and lost 20 pounds. Nobody will believe me, although the facts are documented scrupulously in a scientific fashion, recorded by experts under controlled circumstances, using the most up-to-date methods available. The shrugged shoulders, eyes darting around, the hesitancy of voices and the cleared throats, body language saying, "No way," hands on hips conveying impatience with my perceived naivete. Every morning, bowls of hot fudge were delivered, and in the afternoon, Hershey's Kisses. Peeling silver foil from conical shapes, I popped as many as I wanted into my mouth. For dinner, it was solid Easter bunnies and eggs, shelled M&Ms and Toblerone. This pattern persisted for weeks or months. I lost track of time and hallucinated, hearing voices and seeing things that were not there, all side effects of my radical diet. I spoke to a tree, convinced it was my mother, in the groceries parking lot, walking home with 2 buckets full of Toll House chips. She sang to me an old nursery rhyme and described life on the other side. She was happy, and I went away aware everything would be all right. By then, I was theirs. I had become a convert, dropped pounds, seen God. I had been reborn into a life of chocolatey promise where there was no turning back, and I didn't want to turn back. I had arrived. So I, revisited this for this new publication recently. I hadn't really looked at the book in a long time, and some of them I was just kind of perplexed thinking back on how did I, where did I get from point A to B? There were quite a lot of these titles that I could do nothing with, but for some reason, some just really, came through for me. I don't know if the poems are any good, but I was able to come up with something that I liked. This was The Funky Monkey Hug. Zoologists do it, driven by instinct, tapping into the collective unconscious. Primates invented it, gathered in gangs on grassy tundra, rubbing asses against tactile tree bark in reward of relief. And when it comes, they signal in sign language to their benevolent captors that they love them freely, flicking fleas at each other and tossing dried turds like footballs. I can picture those monkeys. God bless them. Okay, so I have one more for this set, and this is Get My Cigs. I am the one your lungs have been waiting for. Natural selection and the espouses of Darwin over cocktails with other soused sociobiologists couldn't have guessed when primordial aquatic life shambled ashore that billions of years of evolution would make gills useless, paving the way for my product. For all we know, Chuck himself enjoyed a cheroot or two at faculty functions, blowing smoke rings into flushed faces of creationists, but no doubt he rolled his own or had them specially made at the tobacconist's, and would never stop to think between theories or pummeling paradigms that there was such a future in smokes. Money was not his concern, nor the interest of an evolving species, suffering withdrawal symptoms from becoming something new. It took years of acclimatization, floods, seismic shifts, wars, genocide, and gentrification to deliver us to the patch, nicotine gum and hypnosis, self-help seminars, and class action suits. We stand now on the cusp of a new era, and I'll be ready with the matches. All right, let me set this aside, crack my knuckles, bring in Meghan. Hello, Meghan.
Hi, Larry. That was a great transition to what I'm about to read, which, so I, because matches and the piece that I'm about to read from Features an Underground Mine Fire.
Ooh, wow. No, and we did no planning on this part, right?
No planning.
Yeah. The pure serendipity is often what's the funnest thing about doing these kind of readings. So I'm glad I could provide a worthwhile bridge for you. Am I gone?
Oh, no, you are still here.
Okay, all right. Well, I got a little worried there. Am I gone is a question I ask myself every day, just in general. So I want to make sure. So Meghan, what I'll do is I will vamoose and I will turn the screen over to you if that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, looking forward to hearing your set.
So I am going to read. I realized the extent to which I begin all of my books with kind of a landscape establishing shot So I am essentially going to be reading 3 different beginnings from 3 different books for my 3 different sets. The first one is from my first novel, Failure to Thrive. You need to know what once was there, or you will never notice anything. You'll likely just drive through it up the steep curve of the mountain, on the new highway, not knowing there's an old highway, paint sprayed and cracked behind the trees that had to be abandoned. The whole thing looks like hills and brush, some bits of former walls, a couple houses standing still among the empty, flattened plots, a strangely vacant layered grade that seems too steep to build upon, a gated graveyard for a church that was knocked down. You need to park along the graveyard by the clearing in the trees. Follow the dirt footpath that takes you past the gate's edge, down the hill. There is an old green garden hose that you can use to scale down it if the mud is too thick or the snow too deep. You should try to go in the winter when the snow is deep, because when you come to the base, the open vent between the stones, you'll see the branches of the trees are covered in a sort of frozen, feathered mist, collecting from the vent the drifts of steam. The steam comes from the fire underneath the ground, inside what was a mine, beneath what was a town, that has been burning over 50 years, that will burn for 200 more, long after everyone who lived in this town, when it was a town, is dead. There is a whole world pouring from the vent, a world made of heat. Go in the winter, you will see the sharp change in the atmosphere. The snow just stops. The moss stays green. The air feels tropical. A gust of pale fog, a humid sulfur smell. Another garden hose, this one more faded, coils from a tree before the mouth from which the pale fog is pouring, like someone was attempting to get right down over into it, someone who had a need to know the feeling of the fire. And that is all you need to know, and that is all there is to see. Now you can get back on the new highway and drive on through the other mountain towns, the small white houses, seafoam panels, gold-capped steeples, and the rust-bright trickle of a creek where people are still living. Open the window on the 6th floor of the high-rise. Open the window, air the smoke that has collected in this room. The old perfumes of newly polished floors, the hiss of fountain soda, vespers, whispers, fresh paint, velveteen, clean carpet, amber incense, the old perfumes of all these old interiors. You know the ones I mean, the shuttered memories, the sacred spaces of this town, shuttered away from dust, shuttered away from lonely cold, shuttered away from mists of bodies milling quietly, submissively. I know, you know already. Everybody does. They tell these stories all the time, for years, for generations, all their soiled souls swept, coal stains bleached and rinsed, hands cupped under their mouths, so dutifully, hands clasped in their steepled silence. shuttering themselves away from secreted secretions, pills and needles, hills of tainted tissue, tubes of oxygen, the sacred spaces of this town, the marble floors, the molded iron banisters, these grand spaces designed as pristine shelters, echo chambers of their wealth, their own well-being, as reminders of their ownership. Who owns them now? These memories, these shuttered sacred spaces, not the ones burned down, the ones that live behind closed curtains, halls of objects, images encased in light, in photo albums, boxes, coffins, memories, the underground hiss, hums of expectation, ears trained, eyes dilated in the dark, eyes widened so deep here in the layered thick, so deep here in the illness of anticipation, hushed and waiting for the lights to rise. You need to know who once was there in that house up there off the gravel sliver road, in that now empty house just downhill from the high rise, in that house listed for $6,000 auctioned off online, bought by some stranger in some city, sight unseen. You park along the clearing where the road turns red. You follow, as you've been told to, the dirt path through the trees beside the graveyard. You use the garden hose to scale down the hill toward the open vent between the stones, discarded trash, graffiti. You come expecting something terrifying and colossal, boiling toxic geysers, hot steam, glows of underground destruction. You come expecting evidence, some explanation, some summation of the sinking in, the strange decay. You get a hill. You get a no trespassing sign. You get a hole inside the ground. You get the faintest traces of that fabled steam. You get the faintest signs of it, the slow burn, legendary 200-year fire. You are disappointed. That's all for now. Thanks.
Wow. Wow, Meghan, you're a hard act to follow. And yeah, that was really amazing. Who owns them now? These memories, these shuttered sacred spaces. I too am very obsessed with old things. In fact, it's kind of a running theme in my first full-length collection, Inconsolable Objects, which I'm going to be reading from tonight. That was beautiful. Thank you. And Larry, also so beautiful. I'm delighted to be here. I'm going to kick it right off with the first poem in my collection, which is based on a photograph, because I'm really obsessed with photographs, old photographs of me when I was a little girl, which documents a peculiar issue I had as a child. I was completely unable to fake a smile when I was younger. And so when anybody was taking a picture of me and would ask me to smile, I would force my face into this expression that really truly looked like a grimace. And so this is the photograph upon which this next poem that I'm going to read is based. It's the first poem in my collection, and it's called Snapshot. I was a hand grenade of a girl, vacuum packed into a dress that bound my body like a bandage staunching a wound. My arms were cinched in tourniquets of tulle. My throat choked in a rage of lace. I'd hacked my hair into chaos, kept it ragged and short, kept my fists clenched in the fuselage of my lap. My eyes, 2 foxholes, no light escaped. My lips stretched across my face like a tripwire. The man with the camera said, "You can do better. Give me a smile." I set my mouth into the look I've kept all these years. That's still me in the photo, waiting to pull the pin. Tilt-a-whirl. So this being my first full-length collection is filled with a lot of the obligatory childhood poems. So you'll have to bear with me. I grew up in Kansas, so there's a lot of Kansas poems in this collection. It was a hot day in Paola, Kansas. The rides were banging around empty as we moved through the carnival music and catcalls. At the Tilt-a-whirl, we were the only ones. My big sister chose our carriage carefully, walking a full circle until she stopped. The ride operator didn't take his eyes off her. Long, dark hair and amber eyes ringed like the golden interior of a newly felled pine. She didn't seem to notice him lingering as he checked the lap bar, and my sister asked in her sweetest, most innocent, or maybe not so innocent voice, "Can we have a long ride, please, mister?" When he sat back down at the joystick, he made a show of lighting his smoke while the cage of his face settled into a smile I would one day learn to recognize. And those dizzying red teacups began to spin my sister and me into woozy amusement. We forgot the man, the heat, our thighs sticking to the vinyl seats, our bodies glued together in a centrifugal blur of happiness beneath a red metal canopy as we picked up speed and started to laugh, our heads thrown back, mouths open, the fabric of my sister's shirt clinging to the swinging globes of her breasts as we went faster and faster, though by then we had begun to scream, "Stop! Please stop," until our voices grew hoarse beneath the clattering pivots and dips, the air filling with diesel and cigarettes, and the man at the control stick waiting for us to spin toward him again. And each time he cocked his hand as if sighting prey down the barrel of a gun. Coach whip. It was the winter the snake went missing. We searched through laundry hampers, peered into toilets, stepped everywhere carefully. No one slept well. On the eve of the 8th day, my mother turned on the garbage disposal and heard the gargle of blades grinding through bones and flesh. Later, she fished out the mangled creature with an oven mitt and laid it down outside on a bed of snow-capped compost. All that year, I dreamt of knives sleeping beneath me. Mornings, I woke to the memory of the beautiful black coils, the diamond-braided skin in ribbons. And because I was a child plagued by imagination, I waited for them to rise up from the drain, silent as shadows, the kitchen brimming with generations of snakes draped over the chairs and light fixtures, a river of lacerated bodies slithering out of the sink, while the largest serpent slipped off, tasting the air with his tongue, sidewinding down the hall in search of my mother. Resurrection. When I was 5, my brother convinced me to perform mouth-to-mouth on a catfish floating belly up in the scum that gathered in the lake behind our house. He said I had the power to bring it back, though it was my choice. I followed his directions, leaned over the dock, pressed my lips against the stiff ridge of its mouth, while keeping its bloated body submerged beneath the oily sheen, and began to breathe in and out. At first, my brother held my ankles to steady me so I wouldn't fall off the dock. I kept breathing in through my nose, sting of creosote and pond rot, and out through my mouth, a soft exhale of prayer. You already know I did not bring the fish back to life, though it wasn't for lack of trying. I kept breathing into that dark opening long after my brother said to quit, long after he got bored and wandered off, and the setting sun bathed the brackish water in gold. I kept breathing in and out long after the night cooled and the stars rose, and my mother found me asleep on the dock, her voice calling me back from that place where the fish turned its rapturous eyes away from the moon and dove back to its sanctuary of darkness. Thank you.
Wow. I'm sort of hanging there just waiting. Your stuff's really great. The very, very powerful, potent images in there.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, and the photo's priceless.
Yeah, well, the problem is I still have that issue. Like I can't force a smile. And so, people can do that social laugh,
Yeah.
like when they're in company and like somebody says a joke and it's not really funny, but everybody's like, ah, ha, ha, ha. I can't do that. And so it makes me very unpopular.
No,
But you like me.
I love you. Yeah, I know. I totally sympathize though, because I hate the having to pose for pictures and have to put on a smile. I mean, I think my smiles are fine when they're legit, but feeling pressured to smile is something I'm not great at. I
Yeah.
was able to pull it off when I was a kid, but I just think I didn't think much about it then, but now perhaps it's just it's endemic, the fact I probably overthink everything.
Oh, don't we all?
Yeah.
We're poets. Of course we overthink everything.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, I mean, great job. Thank you so much
Oh,
for being,
thank you.
and I look forward to hearing your next set.
Okay. I look forward to hearing yours.
I hope so. Let's see if I can keep up whatever it is I'm keeping up.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have faith in you,
Oh, thank you.
unless your internet cuts out.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Nancy. Yeah, unless my internet cuts out. It's still wind's picking up here. All right, so great job, both Nancy and I love Meghan's set as well. I've heard Meghan read before in person, so I kind of knew what I was up for. But the beauty of doing something like this, quarterly or monthly or whatever, is that get to hear great writers read their own work, and so I'm just thrilled. Okay, so back to I Am Spam. And luckily when I sat down to figure out the sets for tonight, more or less they're running. It's not the whole book, but they're running pretty much in the order of the collection. So this next set it's 3 pieces, and they're longer than the ones generally were in the first set. So this one is called Coy Leonard. I guess you could call this like a profile of this person. Coy Leonard. Hands thrust deep into back pants pockets, Leonard leaned in the dilapidated doorway, turning his head left, then right, apparently unconcerned with his present station. A thin shelter from the gathering storm. Spitting sprinkles of warm rain, fat black clouds assembled in the cool blue sky. The sports section of the daily paper blew by, full-color photo of a heroic quarterback's tackle cartwheeling into view, mimicking the hero's collapse and fateful fumble on the 15-yard line, closely followed by the clatter of a styrofoam cup. Unperturbed by the sound, uninterested in the newspaper, if Leonard heard anything, it was the low rumble of thunder collecting in the clouds, closer now than the crack from before. News in print he distrusted, network news even more. A man who lived for the moment, ignorant of trends and popular opinions, face neither young nor old, implacable with flat affect. He could commit a crime and beat the lineup if caught, eyewitnesses unsure he was the one. But crime was not Leonard's bag. He never stole, lied, or fibbed, or stretched the truth even a little. And as the rain exploded, he ducked his head and ran into the booming breach. So, reading this, I was reminded of when I was, given the opportunity to republish this 20 years later. It just happened to work out that way. Some of the details I tweaked ever so and so reading this, I'm like, the idea of like a newspaper blowing by is probably a rare sight anymore, because print for news just is not what it once was. And I'm not a person who laments that necessarily, but image-wise, that's just something that I felt I couldn't change. And it took me back to actually writing about this guy. It was, if I remember, is somebody that I just happened to catch a glimpse of and tried to imagine what was going on in his head, coy or otherwise. All right, so here's another, coincidentally, double named title, From Coy Leonard to Gel Patrick, and this tonally could not be more different. So, Gel Patrick. After he had begun to go bald, Patrick practiced at prettying the hair that remained, special styles, holistic dyes, and clever comb-overs, laboring to keep failing follicles happy with electric massages, heated turbans, acupuncture. His hair had long been a point of pride, so full it was, so like a shaggy animal's, or Samson's sans Delilah, treacherous, waiting patiently with scissors for the moment to snip. Patrick's Delilah was genetics itself, skipping a generation, pouncing at middle age on the grandson of the man whose own dandelion-like locks fell out in handfuls starting at 30. So he feared for his own head's loss and mourned and fought back with whatever technology promised deliverance from emasculation. In the interim, Patrick moosed, oiled, and slicked back his hair, sculpting it like an artist at his pottery wheel. Pompadoured one day, centurion helmeted the next, admiring his handiwork in the bathroom mirror. He could be anyone his hands created, ears out, ears hidden under carefully delineated boundaries, hair parted like the Red Sea, flushed left or right like a bird taking flight, nape of neck exposed, neck invisible beneath a splash of unsplit ends. His hair was ego, id, and superego, conscious and unconscious, heart, lungs, and brain, bread and water and soul, his sustenance and his religion, his reason and rhyme. A brisk breeze blew, yanking leaves from limbs and sending them spiraling to the earth. Patrick's hair was unmoved. This is a very appropriate poem for this particular night. Okay, third and last poem from this set. It might be the longest one in the book. This is another one of those titles that I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I came up with this. And the title is, It's Friday, What a Crazy Gang. Wearing a Creed tee, black jeans, and flip-flops, Tony spends the morning pretending to work at her desk, playing Scrabble online with Dan in Biscayne Bay, Florida, winning twice, losing once, and one time forfeiting mid-game to run out and get her boss a late lunch from Taco Bell. Dan works at home, webmaster for potassium.net, your potassium HQ on the web. Every day he eats 2 bananas for breakfast while his roommate Roy scrambles eggs and fries bacon, but not today. Today he's got a conference call with Jen to discuss wedding plans. Driving her Jetta on the freeway, Jen's listening to Creed. She loves the lead singer's voice. It's so passionate, so real, as if he were singing to her and her alone. She talks to Roy on the phone about the wedding, bridal shower, and bachelor party, Creed in the background. Her mind wanders for a moment. Dana is in charge of the shower, and Chuck, Dan's friend from back home, the party. The boys were going to go to Las Vegas, but instead a Hooters in Arlington Heights has agreed to rent them their community room with a cash bar and food. Sarah is the Hooters contact. She works nights as a hostess and goes to school full-time days. While Jen is talking to Roy, Sarah sits down to a history midterm. She hasn't studied much since she met Mike 2 months ago at the restaurant, and she's freaking out about blowing the test. Last night she stayed in and crammed instead of going out on her night off with Sheila, Becca, Ronnie, and Liz. Now she's spacing out on all the important dates, times, and players from the Civil War. She chews thoughtfully on her number 2 pencil. Mike plays bass in a Creed cover band. They pack in the crowds at the Cubby Bear on Saturdays, play frat parties, sorority mixers, outdoor festivals such as Retro on Roscoe and Ribfest. He quit his job at Kinko's 3 months ago to play full-time in the band. Aside from Sarah, Mike's been seeing 2 other girls, April and Diane, although none of them knows about the others. Diane used to live next door to Tony in Lincoln Park before she moved to Bucktown. She heard Creed for the first time at Tony's during a condo owners association meeting, was blown away, and had to ask who it was. She and Mike are going to the movies tonight, seeing as it's Friday, and April's out of town. All right. Bringing back Meghan Lamb to the fold. Meghan, how are you?
I'm all right. I was just pouring another cup of tea. I love that last one. I love a poem that's so layered. It's almost like an apartment building, giving you windows into different perspectives.
Yeah, when I again, thinking back on when I was putting this together, I think I almost mathematically went through this because, it's like the rondo from one person to person. And you mentioned Mike, and then Mike gets mentioned in the next part, and then it moves on to another person. And I thought maybe you would, and this is something when I looked at this again, I was like, does Retro on Roscoe even happen anymore? I mean, in a way it doesn't matter because, if you constantly are updating a piece, it might lose some of the original luster it might have had. But when I looked it up, I was like, yeah, I guess it is still happening, or has happened fairly recently. And I figured that even if people wouldn't know about anything about Arlington Heights, they would probably get at least some idea of what a Hooters was, and that if people did know about Hooters in Arlington Heights, that particular combo would have a special meaning for those in the Chicagoland area. But then above and beyond that, it would still kind of come through. So do you think I was right about that?
It definitely got a laugh out of me.
Yeah, good. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It feels good to kind of revisit this stuff. So I'm glad you're here for it. I will turn it over to you again, Meghan. Looking forward to your next set. Your first one was great.
Thank you.
I also left a note for you in the.
Oh yeah, I saw.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So I'm getting out of here.
So the next piece I'm going to read from also begins with a fire of a different nature, or kind of the annual phenomenon of smoke from the forest fires in the Pacific Northwest temporarily, or at least when I lived in Spokane, Washington, turning the sky black for weeks on end. And this is the ARC, so there's a little not for resale tag, but this is the cover of the book, Coward. The sky is burning up again the way it does each August, like some ritual, some letting out of blood. It smells a bit of blood, of iron, say the people from this town. Some say it smells like ore, dark sediment, charred skin. Meanwhile, the factories that used to make their own gray streams of sediment stand still and silent, gathering the drifts. It always starts out with the blonde hairs of the hills standing on edge, bristled and ready, with their bleedy scabs of brush. The smoke begins to rise, a shimmer hover over cracked soil, snake skins, and the ache-stretched skeleton ribs of old rail lines. The shimmer turns to shadows, turns to ash. The sky turns gray, then darker gray, then black. The mountain forests burn, the winds rise, winds of clouds, of hot debris, of smoldering destruction carried through the high plains. Don't worry, someone tells you, for you haven't lived through other Augusts here. No, you do not know. No, you are not used to this. They come in August. Yes, they burn their way through August, and we stay in, wait until September, but it passes every year. Don't worry, they insist, for you look skeptical. Don't worry. It is natural. It is a part of life. A cleansing process. Yes, a learning process. How to learn to wait in hot, dark rooms, looking out windows till it's safe to go outside. Inside, among the shadows of a curtained room, he lies, naked and pale, across the bare slab of his mattress. He has it out again, the picture that she sent him, that he knows he shouldn't keep of her, of them, Kate McLean's perfect breasts. The perfect breasts are as they always are and always will be, rounded, pointed, and resplendent in the dim light, glowing globes of milk glass in the dim light, bowls of soft fog in the dim light, cusps of cold skin there, but not there, here, held in his pinched hand in the dim light. He runs the other hand over the slick bulge of his belly, feels the pain of it digesting what he just consumed. A meal of cigarettes and condiments, whatever shit he had left in the fridge, whole jars of olives, pickles, tube of yellow mustard, a few desperate scrapings of some old congealed marmalade, and something else that tasted sweet but now tastes sour. He feels so full and so unsatisfied. He hisses in between soft teeth. His mouth reeks of Virginia Slims and pickle juice. The room is dry waves of this sealed warmth, but he feels wet with what he doesn't understand, with longing or with loneliness. No, it isn't loneliness, he thinks, tapping his raw nails on the Polaroid's ridge, wishing and not wishing she was ever there. The perfect breasts are there. The perfect breasts are what he has. The perfect breasts are smirking at the seething of his belly bulge. He knows that Kate McLean would say, "Why are you doing that? What do you want? What are you doing? What is wrong with you?" It is this, the raw, nude nerves, the underskin itch. It is this, the shining scabs of his scalp, cracked lines of his chin. And this, the sad, inevitable swelling of his cock. And this, the weird rise of a pain that has no surface. Inside, Across town, in another dark room, she is lying in her nightgown, which is really just some t-shirt from her dad, some stupid logo t-shirt from some lame team building picnic from some big lame company that he no longer works for. The weird cheap pseudo mesh shit that the shirt is made of makes her nipples hard and kind of raw, and that is secretly the reason that she wears it. And she tries not to acknowledge this, but knows it, feels a bit disgusted, feeling how her skin shifts. She looks up at the ceiling, wide-eyed, but she can't see anything. She thinks she's waiting, but she doesn't know why. She gets the same sensation she gets when she's sick and needs to lie still, stiff-limbed, frozen, till the waves of nausea pass. The waiting feels like sickness loaming in her guts. She swallows dry spit and tries to imagine it is soup. She feels her stomach stir like helpless noodles softening. She breathes in deep and deeper breaths, taking in slow sips of the night. And with these slow sips, she imagines her too thirsty lungs inhaling through the dark the invisible hisses of Marianne Lee. Marianne Lee, who is a girl mouth-lined in light pink, little waxy smiles that smell and likely taste like fake strawberries. Marianne Lee, who is, by day, a girly garden full of curls and barbs, her hms and ahs and are you seriouses, and by night, oh, in that soil dark becomes, maybe she thinks, this grinding, deep, unearthing, low moans like unholy bodies underground. Marianne Lee would likely ask, "What are you wearing? Are you serious? What is that even?" She lifts up the t-shirt edge a bit. She takes the t-shirt off and coils it tightly in between her fingers, curls it up into a stiff, embarrassed ball inside her hands. She looks down at the curled up shirt, curls up into herself, clutching her stomach, gently rocking back and forth. "What are you doing? Are you sick or something?" Marianne Lee might say. "Are you okay? What is making you this way?" It is this, her inner belly heat. It is this, the scratched commingling of stubbed legs, twisting blanket yarns. And this, the way the air takes on the stenches of her breath. And this, the fear that no one that she wants will ever want to kiss her. I'm realizing that also has a lot in common with your first piece, Larry, in the sense of being this conglomerate of perspectives. But I'm done.
Wow, that's beautiful. So your language is just gorgeous, Meghan.
Oh,
I love that, a pain that has no surface, and taking slow sips of the night. And that could very well be the best description of breasts I've ever heard.
Oh, thank you. They're a little florid, but I think the breasts, particularly in the photo from which the description was inspired, earned it.
Well, it's interesting because you're writing fiction, right?
Yes.
Because it reads like poetry. So
I'm flattered that you think so. As I said yes very confidently, I realized that I have been mistaken for a poet, or I feel like I'm in drag when people call me a nonfiction writer or a poet, but all of these things are very blendy in my world.
well, I will say that all of my favorite fiction writers are started as poets, and it's because their language is so beautiful. So you're right there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also have to say, I love your doll head in the background.
Oh, yes. Well, when I read Inconsolable Objects in California, I travel with this dollhouse. This big old dollhouse that I found at Goodwill for $12. And I fill it full of inconsolable objects, things that are, like that. I have a lot of them. Hold on. Wait. I have to show you.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's one of many. I collect them because I love broken things. I'm really attracted to broken things. I think we're all broken. And that's how we can love each other and connect through the brokenness is, it's what makes us human. And I'm really attracted to objects that hold stories and that are broken. So that's the kind of the theme that runs throughout my book. But oh, you're gone. Anyway, I guess it's just me and I'm supposed to read now after that marvelous reading. But so I'm going to jump back into another poem in my collection, Inconsolable Objects. And it's called The Invisible Mother. And it's based on back in the Victorian days. This is really weird. They used to drape fabric over the mother when they were taking pictures of children because they had to sit still for a long period of time in order to be able to have the, for the timing of the photo. And they didn't want the mother in the photo, but she had to hold the kids still. So it's the ultimate act of erasure. I don't know if you can see that. That poor woman has been just totally covered up in that photo. Here's another one. So these are called Invisible Mother photos. And this poem is based on those. And it begins with an epigraph. The Invisible Mother. In the Victorian era, young children were photographed with their mother present, but hidden. Wikipedia. The mother's shape, draped in dark cloth, takes on the properties of a chair, a curtain, a cloak. She becomes a living field of fabric, a blank screen, an erasure. Lint gathers in her eyes and the corners of her mouth. She is the rustling in the room, the empty place where dust gathers. Her heart is made of cobwebs, her words glued to the roof of her mouth. No one sees her, chin quivering like a small bird. She has folded her sorrows into napkins, placed at a table set for her children. They feast until nothing is left but her absence. Her fingers tap out time, measuring seconds. She is a forgotten thought, a lamp, a stage, a station of the cross. She bears it silently, this weight, her babies propped across her motionless body. She wears the finery of their bones to mask her naked face. She is counterbalance, stanchion, a breathing pillar of brocade. The space where she begins and ends, debated endlessly in velvet. Thank you. Now I'm going to go back to sorry, I thought I had this all figured out. But I switched the order of some poems. This is about as close as I get to writing a love poem. We all fall down. Ashes coated my son's cheeks, his lashes, his hands still gripping the pressure-sealed bag that exploded when he opened it. I just wanted to see, he said. I wiped soot off his eyebrows, rubbed a smudge above his lip. It came out everywhere, he said, and we both began to laugh, gasps that grew into a keening and filled the room. Then we were silent. I helped my son sweep his dad off the stairs, emptied the inside of his shoes and collar, but the gritty gray bits of bone and ash wouldn't fit back inside the plastic urn. Could it be, even after death, love expands? We scooped up what was left and dropped it from the balcony like snow. So I teach poetry in the jails and the prisons in the area in which I live, and co-founded an organization where we hold poetry workshops for all of the jails in the Santa Cruz County area. And typically when I teach in the jails, I'm escorted into a classroom. The participants are escorted by the correctional officers to my classroom, and I teach the class, and then I push a little button and they're escorted back to their cell block, and I'm escorted out of the jail. But for a brief period of time, the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office organized this program, this wonderful program called the Code 4 program, where they identified a group of men who were about to be released back into our community, and they just bathed them in support services. So they got anger management, and they got financial management and parenting lessons and yoga and meditation. And they asked me if I could teach a poetry workshop. And I said, of course, because what more do you need to survive in this life than poetry, right? I don't know how people go through their lives without it. So the interesting thing about this particular workshop, however, is that it took place right in the cell block where the men lived. It wasn't in a classroom. So I was escorted in by a correctional officer into the men's living space. And he would stay with me through the workshop. And I said to him, you have to write. If you're going to be in our workshop, you can't just sit there and look at us. That's really weird. So he did, and it was wonderful. And this poem came out of that experience. It's called Growing Apples in the County Jail. There is big excitement in C Block today. On the windowsill, in a plastic ice cream cup, a little plant is growing. This is all the men want to talk about. How an apple seed germinated in a crack of damp concrete. How they tore open tea bags to collect the leaves, leached them in water, then laid the sprout onto the bed made of Lipton. How this finger of spring dug one delicate root down into the dark fannings, and now two small sleeves of green are pushing out from the emerging tip. The men are tipsy with this miracle. Each morning, one by one, they go to the window and check the progress of the struggling plant. All through the day, they return to stand over the seedling and whisper. Thank you. I get really tired of writing about myself all the time. So I used to voraciously read news articles and look for things that could inspire a poem. I've stopped reading the news as of about 5 weeks ago. But this particular poem came out of that series of poems that I was working on. And it begins with an epigraph from the inspirational news article that I read. It's called Lost. A boy who was lost in the woods says a bear kept him company. No one can prove it didn't happen. CNN. The bear felt the boy before she heard him, sensed a disturbance deep in the knotweed, and knew something was scared there. At first it unnerved her, but its cub-like crying drew her closer, till a shift of wind brought the unnatural smell she'd learned to fear. She hesitated, sniffed again. This was different, not so manlike or musky. It was nuanced with sugar and sour milk. She was cubless that winter and drawn toward the hurt animal, not with a hunger, but an ache. The orphan had curled up like a pup, nose to knees, whimpering. She patted in softly, singing a lullaby of grunts and chuffs. The child turned toward her musty breath, reached his numb fingers out for her coarse coat. She curled in her claws and lay down slowly, settled herself so she wouldn't crush him, made her body into a cradle and tucked him into her. He dozed. That night, she stayed, and the next night, as the temperature dropped below freezing, told her his stories, purple crayons, night kitchens, magic pebbles. She clicked her tongue and hummed about meltwater and spring. When she heard the far-off calls growing closer, she licked the fringe of blonde fur on his forehead, nudged him awake, and left. Back in the fold of his family, they noticed his unwavering gaze, the way he hesitated in doorways, grazing the air with his face, scenting the room, as if always searching for something he'd lost. Thank you.
I think I wowed before I wow again. That was really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
And I have to say, I apologize for popping Meghan out there. You were sort of like, oh, she's gone.
She's gone. Where did she go? It was so sudden.
It definitely wasn't Meghan hightailing out. I'm just, as the MC,
No,
I'm
I
trying
knew.
to feel
But
out.
I have to know, Larry, is Jen cheating on Roy with Mike?
I'm afraid that is the scenario. Yes,
It's so heartbreaking.
it is heartbreaking. I know.
Oh, these people, these humans, what they do to hurt each other.
What can you do? Those crazy kids, Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
The heart wants what it wants, and in this
What's
case,
going to happen?
Hooters. So yeah. I'm loving your stuff again. Having read what I read, it's a lot different hearing it read in person. I mentioned this before. Both of you are such great readers. I tend to kind of speed through my stuff and not linger on it. Not for any particular reason, but I think anticipating this reading, you mentioned like you haven't been paying attention to the news for the last 5 weeks. Gee, I wonder what that could be about.
I'm not reading the news.
Well,
all the news channels.
My, I had my songwriter round robin. This is probably why it's in my mind. Very soon after the election, and that was like a full-on vitriolic spew on my part. And so I was thinking, oh wow, I kind of look forward to this. Maybe I should read some stuff that kind of, longer stuff, more meditative stuff. And of course, I didn't end up doing that at all. So I think I'm appreciating hearing Meghan's work and your work, and just kind of like lingering and chewing on the language that I'm hearing. It's just really beautiful, and I love the ekphrastic elements of your stuff as well. Those pictures are amazing.
Are those creepy? Yeah, you can look them up online. There's hundreds of them. Yeah. There's actually coffee table books filled. I collect them. That is one up there. Wait, you can't see it.
No, I can't.
Here.
You must present. Oh, move it a little.
I got it. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh. There you go. See, that is the mother back there.
Yeah.
She's got cloth draped over.
Veiled.
So creepy.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's truly the ultimate act of erasure, if you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. All right. Well, once again, awesome job.
Thank you.
Have more of your beverage. We will see you for the last pass. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Larry.
Being here and the virtual here, I guess. So, yes. Oh, wow. As Nancy said before about Meghan, that's a hard one to follow up on, but I will do my best. Once again, I'm finishing up and staying in the realm of I Am Spam, and for this last group of poems, they happen to just be shorter again. So I'm just going to dive in because this is a shorter set. This is Get Your Coupons for All of Your Pet Needs. Half off 200 pounds of gazelle meat with the purchase of a gold-plated feeding bowl for your favorite lion's den. Buy one armadillo, get the second free. Offer available only Sunday through Tuesday. Sweaters for parakeets, budgie vests, crew neck t-shirts in a variety of sizes and colors for toucans, owls, and emus. Spiders of all species enjoy complimentary cocktails with 2 full-price entrees. Freshwater fish bikinis only at our downtown store. This is another spam email line that I continue to see, like the Be Your Own Boss one. Are you an artist? Find out free. There's a test you can take, completely confidential and anonymous, not to be taken in a school, auditorium, or hospital, and there are no right or wrong answers, only questions. No fee for this test, but you do pay and keep on paying and paying until the end. Everyone pays, in fact, eventually. Do you want to know that badly? Does it even matter? You're either an artist or you're not. No middle ground. If you don't already know for sure, admit it. There are suspicions, signs, indications, warnings, and you're worried. Hi, question for you. Where did you get that? I hope I'm not being too personal. It looks great on you. I could never wear one of those. My butt's too big. Pardon my French. Oh, are you French? Parlez-vous français? Habla español? You look kind of European, especially with that on. When you take it off, do you have to hang it up? Does it wrinkle easily? I hate to iron. Come to think of it, I don't even own one. An iron, I mean, because obviously I don't have one of those, although I've always wanted one. How much did it cost? In American dollars. I've been saving up and would like special, just like that. This is Modern Miracles Take Years Off Your Face. The blood of kittens stolen from mobile homes at the stroke of midnight, boiled with frankincense and vitamin E supplements, applied as a mask for 1 hour daily. An authentic shred of the Shroud of Turin, hand-washed in woolite and line-dried north of the equator, then gently steamed to pry open stubborn pores. Pieces of the Berlin Wall, World Trade Center, and moon rocks polished smooth and rhomboid-shaped, rubbed counterclockwise across skin overrun with wrinkles. Specially bred leeches, DNA crossed with certified massage therapists in odd numbers affixed to cheeks, forehead, and chin. And if all else fails, psychic surgery, scalpels levitating, slicing with telekinetic precision, incisions closing like zippers on crotches of designer jeans. And lo and behold, one final one. Stop paying too much. And thanks for being here. I look forward to hearing Meghan and Nancy rock it out here. Stop paying too much. Stop paying too much, or simply stop paying. See it, grab it, run. Ignore alarms. Act innocent, remembering no one is. Ask for your lawyer. Offer less. Barter, beg, cajole. Name your own price, something nice, such as Fred. Borrow instead. Say you forgot your wallet or purse and you'll be right back. Stick a staple in your pizza. Move somewhere cheaper. Live in the woods. Renounce your possessions. Quit smoking. Go on a rent strike. Ride a bike. Or better still, walk. All right. Meghan.
Hey, Larry, you're such an amazing spam ventriloquist.
Oh,
I so enjoy like the fluctuations of tone and voice between these different pieces.
Good, good. Oh, wow, that means a lot to hear that. Like I had said before, I hadn't really, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm always most interested in like the work the most current things I'm doing, and this book had just kind of like fallen in the past. I wasn't going back. I wasn't doing it at readings, and then having the chance to have this new version of it come out, I revisited it, and I kind of like looking at it, it's like, well, is this worth like putting out there again? And I'm always willing to, like, if others enjoy it, that's great. But it just kind of was hard for me to know how it was coming across, and so that means a lot to me because that was sort of the goal putting it together. It's the subject lines are maybe funny enough or weird enough on their own, but do the poems like hold up? Is there enough variety there still? I think was sort of the bottom line for me. So I'm assuming that's the case.
Yeah, they not only hold up, but there's such an interesting parataxis between them. Like so many surprises. That yeah, I'm so bad at talking about something that I just heard, but
that's fine. I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's basically like, I'm so pleased to hear that. I really appreciate it. And I have to say, I think I've been poeting you tonight. I've been referring to you as a poet. And of course, I knew you're a prose writer. But I think, if, going on what Nancy said, I think it's the language again. Just your language is so vivid and powerful.
No, I mean it very sincerely. I'm flattered. It's like being called a doctor when you're not really a doctor or something. I see it as something that elevates me in ways I maybe don't deserve.
Well, that is nice of you to say, but your work is just fantastic on its own poetic qualities or whatever. I think we don't have to measure everything according to poetry necessarily. I think your work is just very vivid and powerful on its own. So that said, I will extricate myself. Look forward to hearing you, and then we'll see you at the end for the fireworks display.
Cool. Fireworks display. I love it. More fire. So the last thing that I'm going to read is from forthcoming March 15th book from Blamage Books. It's a literary horror collection. And while that is forthcoming, the piece that I'm going to read is from this anthology of weird fiction called Mooncalves that I was solicited to contribute to, even though I had never written what I thought was horror fiction before. The guy putting together this anthology said, "Oh, I think you could write horror." So I accepted the challenge, and my acceptance of the challenge for this anthology kind of became what the collection then became, or started the collection. When did it turn so cold, she wonders, as she always does, swaddling head, chest, limbs before her daily wander-walking ritual. Wool stockings under skirt, 2 layers of wool sweaters, hair tucked into hat, then hood, then wound up into scarf. Her visa, where she always keeps it, in its special wallet, in its special inner pouch inside her school bag for safety. She doesn't smoke, but still she tucks a lighter in her pocket just in case she sees someone in need of her small flicker flame. It didn't feel this cold last winter when she came here on her scholarship. The bright lights of the bridges, warm spice steaming from the restaurants, the streams of woody sweetness from the violins that echoed through the streets downtown, the tunnels of the metro. The sounds of unfamiliar language, known words blending into unknown, seemed a pleasant fog in which her fears evaporated then. But now that fog, deep drenched in fear, rises in thick sulfuric clouds up from the alleys, from the grates, the pipes, the drains. Slumped shoulders moving through the fog. cold-shrouded figures moving through the fog. Stray dogs, hunched down, defensive, moving through the fog. Low lights surround buildings, casting arches, statues, spires in golden greenish glow. They tint the fog, but they don't make it friendlier. The buildings are still beautiful in their sepulchral way, their gray, ornately carved skins dripped with splendid filigree, tattooed with long black vines and laced with dead limb looming shadows from the trees that stand as sentinels behind the tall dark iron gates. So still she wanders, fingering the lighter in her pocket, trying to recall, rejuvenate some lost sensation of this place. Her breath in vapors, heavy wet feet, raw face pricking as she looks up at the balconies, the windows of the strangers looking down at her. A strange hard softness in their faces as they stand there, squinting, as though staring from some distance into something imperceptible. Smoking and ashing into full trays, no need for her little lighter. She waves up at them, and they do not wave back. Her only friend, if you could call her that, goes out with her for coffee at the same spot every Monday at 14:15. They used to meet there every Monday to go to the Foreign Office, milling through the bodies crowded in a narrow hall. Listening for her number, called out through the whisperings of Georgian, Russian, Turkish, Azerbaijani, Armenian. Listening to the indecipherable back and forths of hired friend and stern-faced Foreign Office woman with her many sets of stamps. Watching the Foreign Office woman with her long false nails, wrinkled fingers, heavy gold rings, fingering these stamps. Posters on every wall with numbers you can dial if you need someone to help you buy a plane ticket to leave. But now she has her visa, and she pays her friend with cups of coffee, sandwiches of thick coarse bread, and pale cheese. Occasionally, when she's very bored or very lonely, she will pay her friend in cordials of cheap plum brandy. "Your face looks bad," her friend remarks, tossing her brandy back. "What's bad about my face?" she asks. "Your skin, your eyes." "Oh, good," her friend shrugs. "Bad." She shudders. "You don't think I need to see a doctor?" They both know that see a doctor means great risk and bribes and very bad. Her friend nods up and down, which here means no, not yes. "It is not absolutely bad, only a small bit bad, like bad from sadness." She chews her sandwich, takes a too big bite that's hard to swallow. "Do not see the doctor," says her friend, "but do not be so sad." The spaces in that collection are all kind of an amalgam of Eastern Europe places, but the head nodding thing is an actual idiosyncrasy of Bulgarian body language. But a lot of things in that particular story are also based on my time living in Hungary. But yeah, that's all for me. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow. I love your work, Meghan.
I love your work too, Nancy.
I love literary horror too. I can't wait. That's forthcoming. right?
March 15th.
Okay, March 15th. Well, can you tell us how we can pre-order?
Absolutely.
Because I'm a fan and I want that book. Definitely want that book. The whole, like the daily wander walking ritual, that's me. I do that. But also someone like going around with a lighter who doesn't smoke because someone might be in need of her small flicker of flame is so touching and kind of weird. Love that. Yeah. And bad from sadness. Oh, yeah. Bad from sadness. I've been that way for about 5 weeks now, maybe 6. I don't know.
Me too. Me too.
We're bad from sadness. But that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually just going to finish up with one poem from my collection, and it's called and I this is a little weird, Larry, because I can't see who's watching. But if you're watching, if you're out there, hi, hello, I love you. Connect with me, nancymillergomez.com. And buy Megan's book and Larry's book because they're brilliant and amazing. And this is the last poem I'm going to share from my collection called How Are We Doing? This is what happens when a poet walks into the DMV. The man working window 11 at the DMV wears a happy face pinned to his name tag as if he's hosting a social event. But even from here, 3 people back, I can see Frank is having a bad day. He keeps tapping the same key, hoping the computer will do something different. Poor Frank, tapping harder and harder, pausing sometimes to stare owl-eyed at a young woman waving her paperwork as if she's trying to reignite a dying fire. Her pretty face has grown ugly in anger. She smacks the counter, demanding to know the problem. Roused from her desk, a grenade-shaped woman drifts over to hover above Frank. She gives him directions in a tight managerial voice, so unmusical, you'd call it noise. While Frank continues to tap and tap until she commandeers his keyboard, fixes the issue, and walks off, leaving the stamping and stapling to Frank, who hustles with a deference that hurts to watch. Meanwhile, the man in front of me has given up and huffed out of the building. But Frank, I want to lean over the counter into your small personal space and straighten your reading glasses that have gone askew. Their broken frames hang cockeyed off the thin bridge of your nose like pipe cleaners in a preschool project. I want to batten down that piece of your hair sticking up, except I'm still in a line that isn't moving. And I fear the office will close before I've had a chance to tell you how sorry I am that life has brought you here to this place where all these people unwind like a frayed rope into the unhappy well of your workdays. But finally, it's my turn, Frank, to look you in the eyes and ask you to process my papers. How hard is it really to notice the way you bunch one corner of your mouth into a half smile or blink at the mention of your name? A name I have carried in my heart for all of these 20 minutes. So when you hand me back my temporary license, along with a form that asks, "How are we doing?" I want to believe there is someone watching over us to whom I can respond, "Please, we're not doing well here. The doors to the building have been locked. The office is empty. We are lonely and hurting, and night has just begun." Thank you.
Wow. Great job.
Such a wonderful reading. Thank you, guys.
And
Oh,
such an interesting like synchronicity between the set. Not just like that's part of the beauty of the round robin approach is there are like surprising connections that you might not otherwise appreciate.
Yeah. I'm going
absolutely.
to start carrying a lighter around with me, Meghan.
I think too, there's always the flexibility of being able to like, I didn't do it, of course, myself, but like trade out something else. That's definitely happened in the past when someone's like, oh, you inspired me. I have to read this piece now. So, but the synchronicities were there. It's very bizarre, but very satisfying at the same time. I put the web info for both of you for the Facebook part of this in the little comments on the right there. So to make sure that, I mean, Nancy gave hers. Meghan, you could verbally say it too for yourself if you like, just so people have it too.
Oh, I don't have Facebook.
Oh, but just your web, your home
Oh,
page.
yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I mean.
It's pretty easy to remember. It's just my name, meganlamb.com.
And
Oh,
for
I put that in the private part.
oh yeah, I put them both in the regular comment section for the Facebook people. Yeah.
Okay, great, because I don't know
Yeah,
how
I
to
see
do
it.
that.
Because I knew you had said it and you reminded me, Nancy, to do that, to drop them in there. And I can do the same when this is put up in on YouTube. Like I said, it'll be posted there later
Thank
too.
you, Larry.
Of course. Do both of you have anything else you need to plug or want to plug that's coming up?
I'm just so delighted to be reading with the two of you. It was I loved hearing your work, and I felt so it was I love the round robin. I felt so embraced and sandwiched. It was great.
Yeah, have you done anything like that before, Nancy?
Well, I've gone back and forth, when in a reading with people, but I've never done a round robin, and I really liked it, Larry. I think it's a great idea. I
Yeah.
really
I've
appreciate it.
never done anything like it, and I will have to find a way to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is really great. I mean, as we were saying before we went on, it sort of takes the pressure off to do a longer set. But also, I think what you get from it is that connections that occur and just being able to like sort of do your thing, sit back, listen. And I think that there's something more rewarding about that in a way than just being able to like hear someone in one big burst. And for both of you too, it was just I think it was the selfishness to be able to just sit back and hear a little and then take it in and then know it's going to come around again. So love to have you back at some time in the future.
It was fabulous. Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you, Meghan.
Yeah.
My two new friends, my new poetry friends and fiction friends,
Writing friends,
writing friends.
verse friends,
Art
however we want to
friends.
put it. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you both doing this. It has been, this has made me feel better. Just like I said when I had my songwriter thing a couple weeks ago, it felt better for me to vent there. But this was more pleasant than that was. That was enjoyable too. But you're both such great writers. Very evocative stuff.
And likewise, Larry.
Thank you so much.
It's an honor to read with both of you. Thank you so much.
This is a time when it's really important to feel cradled by your writer community.
And that's exactly how I feel. Look at me. I'm cradled by both of you.
Oh,
I'm
you're
in
in the
the middle. I feel so cradled.
It just yes. No, you're luckily cocooned between us right now.
Yeah, I feel very lucky. Thank you, guys.
So I hope you both have a good New Year and good holidays. We'll keep in touch.
Yes.
And, again, we'll be back. December, January in March on the first Wednesday in March. I don't know what that. I don't know what that is. And then just go to the Excited Utterance site to find out who's going to be reading then, because we want to focus on what's going on right now. And if there's nothing else, both of you hang on. We'll give our goodbye, our wave. I promised some sort of fireworks show I could pretend that it's going on outside my uptown window here right now, but I think the fireworks were all here. So we'll wave, say goodnight, and then you both hang tight, and then we'll do our official goodbye after we're off the air. See everybody.